My name is Audrey Yates, and I'm with the Office of Enterprise Quality and Safety, and I'm here to talk today about performance improvement. The information presented today comes to us from Toyota Production Systems. As we as UK Healthcare have grown, we have learned to adopt these key principles utilizing Toyota as well as the College of Engineering and moving forward within the organization. As we look at trying to grow and figure out how this applies to healthcare, we've applied that and have used it in many different ways. Some successful, and as we continue to learn, we're learning how to use this very effectively. Looking at some of the key terms that you'll learn as we start to apply lean and how it works at UK Healthcare, there are some key words that you'll hear us talk about. First of them being talking about the Kentucky Clinical Management System, and what that describes overall is our lean initiative. Looking at our support from leadership as well as those who work on the front line and support staff, this is one that requires lots of time and effort in growing our organization to be the best that we can be. Some of the key terms that you'll hear us talk about, specifically looking at becoming a patient-centered organization. As we look at trying to adopt this from Toyota Production System, a lot of this does apply to cars, but as we've learned and as have grown, that we really need to realize how this applies to patients. As we look at respect for people, and we're looking at using this throughout the organization utilizing teams. Teams come to us from different places, so it can be environmental services, food services, ambulatory side, certainly the nursing and the provider side, but we certainly need to understand how we collectively can work together to try to solve and fix problems. Another term that you'll hear is what's known as 8-step problem solving, and what that describes is what's known as how we identify a problem, identify how we can fix it, and then certainly prevent it from coming back. As we think about these key terms, basically what you're going to get is just an overview. And with that overview, hopefully you'll get some excitement based on some examples that I'll show you, but really just gain an appreciation for what we're trying to do at UK Healthcare. As we look at 8-step problem solving, there's an important side to what we do, and that really is talking about standard work. The days in and the days out of what we do as employees, as individuals who work on different shifts in different departments, what we've recognized that there's lots of opportunities to take what we do day to day and attempt to do it across the board very similarly. And so when we start to do that, as we walk in at the beginning of the day, there's more of a predictable side, a side that says at the start of the shift I can expect X, Y, and Z. And hopefully some of that will help facilitate and simply ease some of the frustrations that we may get as the day moves on. The other side is also looking at small cycles of change. And when you look at the 8-step problem-solving approach, it's really taking a big problem and trying to focus in on very specific things that we can work on. And a lot of times when we talk about small cycles of change, it really stems and certainly talks about trying to be able to test things safely. Without injuring a single hair on anybody's head, we want to be able to take this approach and really try to see how it applies to our specific areas. And really the only way to do that is to try things. So with some of these key terms, the Kentucky Clinical Management System is looking at how we can utilize lean and apply it across the organization, so that as we communicate across the board that we're looking at trying to solve problems close to exactly the same way. You'll hear us talk about a common language, talking about fixing problems, 8-step problem solving, standard work, and small cycles of change. Looking at some of the lean projects that are currently underway. Currently you see a list of many. You can look at as from an expansive standpoint, you've got safe patient handling, you've got equipment, improved code response. As you start to look at your specific area, hopefully you'll see some applications of how this is being used in your departments. You can look at some of the teams, whether it be efficiency-based or looking at IT service requests or looking at some other things that we're currently working on. You can see it's not to one particular area. The previous slide really talked about respect for people. As you can see within each of these teams, there are team members. And with the common approach of using the 8-step problem solving, our hopes are is that we can compare ourselves to each other and certainly help each other as we try to fix things throughout the enterprise. So as you look at this list has since grown since January the 14th, and there are currently about 30 projects or so going on that are currently utilizing the 8-step approach. The 8-step approach is just a very basic concept. It talks about identifying a problem and putting it onto an 11 by 17 sheet of paper. And within there, you're going to have 8 different steps, which I'll go to in a few minutes. As we think about the Kentucky Clinical Management System, and as we think about Toyota, we understand that it's not about making cars. And so as we look at trying to apply that to what we're doing today, wanted to dispel certainly some of the myths that we've come across as we try to apply this. And so now I'm going to show you a video.
Oh, this is your last chance. If one piece of candy gets past you and into the packing room unwrapped, you're fired. Yes, ma'am.
So this is easier. Yeah, we can handle this, okay? Listen, Ethel, I think we're fighting a losing game. Here she comes.
Fine, you're doing splendidly. Speed it up!
So as we had a chance to hopefully get some excitement and some laughs from this video, one of the things that we want to share with you is certainly lean is not about making people go faster. As we look at these myths, we recognize that as we start to apply this to UK healthcare, there's lots for us to learn on how this journey is going to look and feel. Currently, we do offer what's known as 32 hours of 8-step training. With that training, you actually get to work on real UK problems. The exciting side to this is that we don't have an answer to the end of that. As people fix these and apply 8-step problem solving, typically their final solutions are ones that we didn't anticipate. So again, that's the excitement behind this. Utilizing the team concept, a lot of patient-centered activity where people are spending time out on the floors. It's really giving people an opportunity to understand how lean and how 8-step problem solving can apply to what they do day to day. Going into a little bit more in depth on 8-step problem solving, certainly don't let the steps or the slides intimidate you. Part of the training and certainly some of the just-in-time activity that we do with the teams is basically utilizing the same language. So for steps 1 all the way up through steps 8, you're basically again identifying, fixing, and preventing a problem from coming back. So with step 1, you're trying to clarify a problem. Certainly one of the precedents behind starting an actual 8-step is having data. We want to clearly identify a standard that helps us understand how do we do things today, what are our expectations, and certainly having the data to validate whether or not we're meeting that standard. As we look at trying to breaking down the problem in step 2, it's coming to some general consensus on what the data is telling us. Again, very data driven. We start to break it down and try to identify just a focal point. And again, this focal point doesn't become the one of the 100 that might be occurring in terms of some of the errors or other things that are happening, but it's trying to take that 100 and trying to find maybe 5 things to work on. And so that takes consensus. That takes an opportunity for the groups to go out and talk with people. So as they start to participate in 8-step problem solving, it's not all about just sitting around a conference room. What we're attempting people to do is really to try to get them out onto the floors, to try things, to test things, but more importantly, become acquainted with the problem. Understand what it really means to experience when something doesn't work. Step 3 is looking at target setting. So once they've identified a very specific focal point to work on, they're going to go ahead and set a target. Analyzing the root cause in step 4 is where you're trying to ask yourself why something happened. And then finally for step 5 seems to be a lot of people's favorites. That's when you actually get to come up with solutions. And so when you look at problem solving from step 1 at least up through step 5, solutions really don't come into play until you get through that final step in step 5. A lot of people come in with the anticipation that they know that the problem is going to turn out this way, and that's probably about less than 1% of the time. For the majority of the time, it's discovery. It's where people go out onto the floors, talk with people, understand what's going on, where their initial attempts at trying to solve it by applying 8-step problem solving, they come up with a different conclusion at the end. Step 6 is building a plan. So basically you want to build a plan and work the plan. Step 7, you want to evaluate. So again, as you look at trying to gather data up in the front end with step 1 and step 2, step 7, you're going through and identifying, did we achieve the results, yes or no? And then finally in step 8, you're simply trying to standardize. So for each one of these steps, there are some basic guidelines. Number 1 is you always start with step 1, and that's identifying the big problem. And as you start to break it down in step 2, keep in mind you're breaking that big whole down into parts and pieces. And when you start to pick the area to focus on, that helps to identify what you're going to continue to work on as part of the 8-step. Certainly some of the challenges that we face as we try to apply this is certainly not to get hung up on the mechanics. The mechanics behind the 8-step can be somewhat cumbersome if you allow the team to progress that way. But certainly with the right training, certainly with the right know-how and how to execute these fairly quickly, groups can get through these in about an hour and a half to 2 hours time. As we look at finally standardizing, standardization across the enterprise is one that we continue to find ways to do better in terms of communication, sharing information across the floors, across providers. We are figuring this out. So it's been a great opportunity to be able to work with these different teams to try to see how that looks and feels. Certainly as part of training, certainly working with Colleen Schwartz and Tim Tarnowski with IT, one of the things that they've asked is that their managers and leaders go through this. And so as we've had participants in ranks of close to about 20 people per class, we offer 32 hours of actual hands-on training. And as stated at the very beginning of this orientation, this is where we're actually working on a real UK problem, issue, or opportunity, however you want to describe it. So we take that problem, we provide you with the data. With that data, you go out there into the field and you actually are doing what's known as go-sees. You're out there watching what's going on, talking with people, asking people why, what are some of their different thoughts on solutions. And then in the end, we conclude with just a report out. And in that report out, typically we would have somebody from leadership there to hear about the team's progress. As each of the teams have continued to work on post the training, we've had some great success in trying to do some standardization across UK healthcare, particularly looking at the nursing side. So we've done things with core measures. We looked at trying to reduce employee exposures to injuries related to manual boosting and rolling. We've also looked at needle sticks and injections. So there's been some great opportunities for these groups to participate not only on the upfront of identifying, but also fixing a problem as well. Certainly, if you do have any information with regards to training or things that you think might be opportunities in your department, you have my contact information listed there, as well as email. Keep in mind that we're here as a resource to you. We're here to help you on a consulting side, whether it be a hallway conversation, or certainly as you're looking departmentally within your own areas to see how this works. Certainly feel free to register via LSO. And that concludes my presentation. So thank you.